this is just a reminder when submitting your assignments. This is how you do it. You just need to go on the link with the Notion page, and that's got all your weekly submissions. And then you just need to put in the link to your GitHub for that week's assignment. All right, so let's check in, move on. Right, catching up via recordings. If you joined the program late, don't worry, you can still catch up by watching the recordings of previous sessions. So that's no problem. And that's what to do, but I think we're past that now. Right, that's an objective. So we're going to continue to build off top of last week's work. We're going to understand what CSV files are. We're going to be able to safely read and write from CSV files, and we're going to develop a user-friendly menu-driven application. So similar to what we've been doing every week so far. What we're going to be building today. Today, we're going to create a basic expense tracker using CSV files. We're going to display a menu with options for the user and allow the user to write hard-coded sample expenses to a CSV file. So we're going to basically not let them write in the expenses themselves. We're just going to, just for time's sake, we're going to have that sample prepared, but we're just going to let them write that to the file. We're going to allow the user to read and display expenses from the CSV file, and we're going to implement error handling. So in case anything goes wrong, your program will be able to handle errors regarding opening and closing the file. Reminder, you're not expected to memorize everything we covered today. And hopefully you'll be able to pick stuff up as we're going along, and you've got the Saturday sessions to ask extra further questions that you can't get answered today as well. Right, so what are CSV files? CSV files, so CSV stands for comma separated values. Okay, so that's literally it. So it's just a file, plain text file that stores tabular data. Sorry about that. Yeah, that stores our plain text files that stores tabular data where each line represents a row and columns are separated by commas. So it's just like a list of items on each line. They are commonly used for importing and exporting data between different software applications and databases because they're very simple and very widely compatible. So for example, you can open it with Excel. You can write Excel tables to CSV files, etc. What are the benefits of CSV files? So data storage. CSV files are perfect for storing structured data like contract lists, transaction records, inventories. Simplicity. CSV files are easy to create and read using basic text editors. And efficiency. They are lightweight and quick to load even with large data sets. So I can show you an example of a CSV file. So you can see here, you've got the rows here, Mac serial name, and then you've got the MAC address, serial name. It's literally that simple. Okay, this could be a CSV file. So it's just separated by commas, items separated by commas. All right, really simple stuff. Right. They're also very widely compatible, so they can be opened and edited by many programs, including Excel, Google Sheets, Apple Numbers, making them ideal for sharing data across different platforms and software. So the same file opened up in Apple Numbers, you can see looks like this. It's the exact same thing. Right, so firstly, we're going to open up either Replit or Trinket, so wherever you write your code. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to send a link to Trinket, which is what I'm going to be using. If anyone wants to use that, that's fine. If you don't, that's okay too. And that should open a blank page of things. So I'm just going to keep going. Unless someone has any questions, then you can always interrupt me. Right. Writing to a CSV file. So this is the code that we use to write to a CSV file. So now this looks like a lot of stuff, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break it down and I'm going to go through it line by line. All right. So the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to work with CSV files, which Python, oh no. Sorry, just bear with me, guys. My computer's being a bit funny.
Can you just go back to the previous page while you're doing that? I just want to see what you predict, what you wrote.
Yeah. Here you go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right.
Right, has everyone managed to open up their Trinket okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Right. Right. So the first thing we're going to do, that wasn't on there, is we're going to import CSV. So this allows us to work with CSVs. Okay. So all we do is we write import CSV. I'm running it, so nothing should happen. All right. So the next thing we need to do. Oh, oh, sorry, someone else just joined in. So just bear with me while I just let them in. Sorry, guys, bear with me about the delay. My computer's just being extremely slow today, which is unlike it, so I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, import CSV, right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to write a function that, oh, we're not going to write a function actually. We're just going to do the code that writes. Okay, so we're going to say, so when writing files, what we need to do is we need to handle that the file might, one, not be there, and two, there might be an error with the file. Okay, and the reason for that is if not, your program will just crash every time you try and open this file if it doesn't exist. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say try. And actually, shall I? Sorry, we're not going to do that. We're going to start working on the program itself. I think that'll be a much better way of doing it. Right. Okay. Sorry. So what we're going to do is we're going to first write a function. So we're going to work on our simple expense tracker straight away. Okay. And then I'll talk you through the reading and writing while I'm doing that, because that way we get to finish the program for sure. Right. So what we want to do is we want to write a function first that has the three options of what they want to do. So the user gets three options in this sample program. So they can either read the program, they can either write from the program, or what they can do, well, they can't, yeah, they can either read so they can write to the sample thing that we've hard coded to the file, and then they're going to be able to read that, or they're going to be able to exit. So there's three options, two options really, because we've got the exit there as well. Right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a menu. So we're going to say def display menu. So remember, this is a function that's doing a certain task. So our task here is to create a menu, okay? And I'm using underscore here. You could use camel case if you want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out 3 different options. So my first option is going to be 1. We want to say, well, actually, we can write a nice little display message. Actually, we're going to say expense tracker menu. Now, remember, because this is a function, because we've not called any of the code, when I run it, nothing should execute, okay? Then my second option is going to be 1. We're going to add sample expenses. So these are the expenses that we're going to have hard code just for ease of time. The second one we're going to do is we're going to display those expenses. And the third option is we're going to exit. Right. Is everyone with me so far with what we've done?
Yes, but I'm just wondering, can you not just do that all on one line using whatever it's called, backslash, but reverse backslash n?
Yeah, you can do it all on one line using reverse backslash n as well. So I could have just gone backslash n and then added in number 1, 2, 3. So it's completely up to you. I've just done this for the sake of looking nice. But yeah, if you want to do that, absolutely fine. I'm going to let you amend your code now. All right, I'm just going to give a minute for everyone to get this bit done because it's quite relatively straightforward. And then I'm going to move on to the next section. Okay, I'm assuming, is everyone okay with everything we've done so far? Yeah. Okay. See some thumbs up, so which is good. Awesome. Right. I'm just going to move on to the next bit. So our next thing is we're going to create another function. So remember, this needs to be in line with the first def. So we're going to say add sample expense. So this is our next task, which is the first bit of the program. Right. Add sample expense. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to create the sample expenses. All right. Oh, within here, what we're going to say is we're going to write file path. And the file path, the argument here, the argument meaning this variable that we're passing in, we're going to specify later on. Okay, so we're going to decide what we want the CSV file to be called later on. For now, it doesn't matter. We're going to pass in a sample file path. And as long as we use this throughout our function, we can then use any file path for every time we call the function. Okay, so we can change the name later. I'll demonstrate that later on. Right. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create our sample expenses. So we're going to create a list to store our sample expenses. Okay. Right. Sample expenses. Um, right. What we're going to do is we're going to create a 2D list. So I'm going to just keep pressing enter. So you can see here, I've got an open and closed bracket. All right. Now, what we want to do is we want to right, I'm going to create another set of square brackets here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the options first. So I want the headers of the rows. So I want to have a date. I want to have the amount, the description of what it is, and then the amount. Okay. And then I'm going to put a comma underneath. And then on the next line, I'm going to write one expense. And then I want you guys to come up with the next expenses. Okay. So I want you to make up as many expenses as you want. So okay. So on my next line, remember, I put a comma at the end of this one. And on the next line, I'm going to write so that it matches. So the first thing I'm going to write is the date. And I'm going to write, let's write the date for last week. So we'll go for the 21st of the May, so 5, 2024. Okay. And then my description is going to be groceries. And the amount is going to be now. The amount, so this is a string, this is a string. My amount is not going to be a string. So we're going to make it a number because we want the amount to be then stored as a number, which we can then go use onwards. So I'm going to write 50.00. So we've got it in the right format for currency. Okay. Now, again, I can write one more. I can write 22nd of 2024. Rent 800. Okay, so can you guys write some sample expenses in for me, as many as you can, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so you don't need to write these specifically. I want you to have at least 4 or 5 in there. Okay, and just give me a thumbs up when you've done that. So, so if you're struggling to think of what to write for expenses, you can do things like rent, utilities, transport. Just write bills. And remember, this is how we want to store it. And if I run my code, again, I should have no errors. And nothing should run. Nothing should run, but I should have no errors. Also, after the last one, don't put a comma. Okay? So after the last one, you don't have a comma for the square brackets. And I'll show you an example of how that should look after. All right. I'm just going to share my screen now so you can see that this is how I kind of want it to look. All right. Hopefully everyone's okay with that. Okay, is everyone good with everything so far? Can I move on? Yeah. Okay, awesome.
I'm having a problem in that my trinket doesn't work. Is it because I have it open on I think it's because I have it open on in two places, because when I press play, nothing happens. It just
That's
goes.
fine. If nothing happens, that means you're doing it right. Nothing should happen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we've not run anything yet. So this is all within functions, okay? So we've not actually done anything that prints.
Oh, thank you.
All right, no worries. Right. Okay, so next thing we do is we're gonna actually start the writing to the file, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're going to write the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write try, okay? And the reason why we do everything in try is this is going to essentially, it's like we're telling Python, try this bit out. If it doesn't work, don't crash the program. We want to handle it a different way. So this is saying try this bit out. So what we're going to try is we're going to try writing to the program. Sorry. Right. So we're saying try with open. We're going to open our brackets. We're going to say file path, which is the file path that the user specified. The mode. So we've got a comma there. We got mode equals A. And now this mode means append. Okay. So it's going to add to the end of whatever's in the file already. Okay. But it's going to create a new line. And the new line is just going to be on a blank, and it's just going to create a new line. Okay. And we're going to open that as file. So we're going to open that file and we're going to refer to it as file from now on. So we don't need to keep writing the whole file path every time. We can just say file. And then we've got a colon. Everyone with me with what that bit means? So there is different write modes. Okay, amazing. Thank you guys in the chat letting me know. With opening a file, we've got different write modes. We've got append, we've got write, and we've got read. Write means it would delete everything and it will write fresh. So every time we run it, the file would be erased and it would write fresh to the file. So sometimes we don't want that because we want to append to the file because we don't want to delete what's already in there. Okay, we just want to add to it. And in this case, it doesn't matter because we're only going to add the sample expenses in once anyway.
Please make a bit bigger. I cannot see.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. There you go. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to call a writer that will write it for us. So we're going to say writer equals. So this is going to help us write to the file itself and make it a write to a CSV file. And we're going to say from the CSV library that we've imported in, which is from the top, we're going to say dot writer. We want the writer section and we want to write the file. Okay. We want to write to the file. Yeah. So whatever file we've opened up. And also what with open does is if the file doesn't exist, because in our case, we don't have a file, we've not added any other files in, this will create the file for you. Okay, so that's what with open does. It will create the file for you if the file isn't already there. So we've got a writer equals csv.writer file. Okay, so from the CSV library, we're going to get the writer bit, and that we're going to write to this file specifically. And that's going to be what we're storing in writer. And then we need to just specify which rows we want to write in. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a for loop like we've done before. We're going to say for. So we're going to say for every expense in the sample expenses. So for expense in sample expenses. All right, so we're going to go through each line by line. Yeah, for every expense within sample expenses, we're going to say writer dot write row. So this is saying to this file, we want to write the row expense. So each line by line. So the first time it's going to write this line. The second time the for loop runs, it's going to write this line, etc., until it gets right to the end here. Okay, and then it's not going to write anymore. And just to finish that off, we're going to come back out and we're going to come back in line with the writer and we're going to say print, because we don't want to print every line. We don't want to say written successfully. We want to do it after it's all been written. So we have to come out in line with the for loop and we say samples printed successfully. Oh, sorry, we don't want to do that every time the file opens up either. We want to do that outside here. So we want to do it in line with the with open. All right, so once it's done all of this, it's appended all of that to the file. We want to say samples added successfully. Okay. Remember, if any of that fails, because we've done it within the try, we're going to go on to the next bit. All right, which I will show you in a second. Right. Just to finish that off, actually, we're going to write except IO error. All right, and it has to be spelled like this, okay? So we need to have the same capitalizations. So I, O, and then E for error is capital as well, right? Except IO error. And what that stands for is except input output error. So if the file can't be opened or there's any issues with the file or any issues like that, this error will happen. And we're going to say, if this error happens, don't crash the program, just say an error message. So what we're going to say is print an error occurred when writing to the file. Okay. Right, so that is this entire section done. So I'm just going to move down. So yeah. Right. If anyone's got any questions with that, just just talk to me now. Yeah, because I did feel like I did go through that slightly fast. So if you do need to go over it, that's okay.
What did you say? What does mean the mode equal A and the new line? Line 19.
Yeah, okay, cool. So when we open the file, there's different modes we can open the file in. So let's say we want to just display the samples, which so for part 2, which we're going to come on to, we don't need to actually do any writing. So we only need to open it in read mode. Okay. So there's different modes. The mode A here stands for append, which means it will just add to the end of the file. Okay. That's what A stands for. And the new line here will basically mean every every time it's added, so anything that's already there, we want to add anything else to a new line. So we don't want to add it to the end of the file. We want to add it to a new line. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. No worries. Any other questions, let me know. Ingrid, see, I get the error message. Leading zeros in decimal literals are not permitted. Use for octal integers. It might be with the start of your numbers. Have you got any number that starts with just a 0?
No, I have, but I haven't used decimals. Okay, I'm gonna try again. One sec. No, it still says invalid. Okay, something's wrong. I know what I did wrong. I don't have the second bracket at the very end.
Yeah.
Now, I think I got it. Oh no, indentation error.
Okay, so sorry, if you've got an indentation error, that's my fault. Your try and all of your other lines, basically, it needs to be one line less. It needs to be in line here. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay, yeah,
what we
yeah.
had was this, which is wrong. So I did that on my part. So just delete one space before each line, and that should fix it. So make sure you do that with every line. Delete just one space so that it's in line with try. And then if you run it, you should get no errors. All right, so again, our test right now is if we run it and we get nothing, we've done it right.
I still get invalid syntax. Line 20.
Okay, so just check your syntax on line 20. Is it exactly the same as mine?
I've got a space between the two. Okay, I've got a space between the two, new line equals dot dot. That may be it. By the way, one thing I noticed when I was doing things is that if I write code and it has the wrong kind of quotation mark, like a different font, it doesn't read it.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know why that is. That is just Python is quite particular about it all being the same. So just double check that.
But what font should I be using that it likes?
As long as it's the same font throughout, it doesn't matter.
No, it was the same font throughout. It just did not accept the double quotation marks.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure. If you share your code with me, then I can have a look.
Okay, I'll send it to you sorry at the end. What I'll do is I'll do Andale Mono. That's about as boring as it gets. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so there's one thing that you haven't done, Samia, sorry, is that you have on line 19, you need to add a semicolon at the end. All right, or you're going to end up with a syntax error. So you need to have a semicolon at the end here.
Yeah, I added, but when I run, doesn't come through. Yeah.
Okay, and then line 20. Nope, I can't see a semicolon here in the one
No, yeah, after file, I added. Then, yeah.
List indexes must be slices, integers, not.
I've got the same thing for the same line.
Uh, okay, right, bear with me.
I've got, well,
Da-da. Ah, you're missing a comma here.
so does writer
I
have,
added. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's now like this. Yeah, I
Yeah, that's
added
fine.
this.
That means it's correct. That's fine.
Oh, all right then. Thank you.
No worries. Sorry, Ingrid, what were you saying?
sorry, I didn't interrupt. For some, okay, I'm just wondering about so with and writer. So for me, the issue is line 20.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if I've got it in the wrong place. Does it have to be, it's in line with the, between the I and the T. So writer equals CSV writer file, that's correct. And yet it's saying invalid syntax, perhaps you forgot a comma.
Okay,
Oh.
perhaps you forgot a colon. That means on line 21,
Comma,
if you're getting
comma.
a comma.
Yeah,
On line 20, you don't need a comma on line 20.
it says, with open file path mode, a new line double, maybe it's on the previous
Can
line.
you write me the code of your file again?
Okay, that's
Just like you did before.
this takes typing, but I'll do my best. Maybe you want to
Yeah.
move on. Well,
That's all right, no worries. Again, remember, you don't need to send me the whole link. Just if you write the code bit at the end, that's fine.
yeah.
Right, okay, I'm just gonna have a look at Layla's code. No module name CSV. Okay, so Layla, right at the top, it's all lowercase for CSV. Remember, case is important in Python.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. That was it, literally. Everything else is fine.
How can I do a new line without it coming?
If you can write the link for your code rather than sending me the.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
So if you press share link and then write just these few letters, that'll be a lot easier for me than.
Okay, cool. I'll just. Ooh, share. Share. Link. Got it. Okay.
Okay. Right. So. Okay, so the next bit we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the displaying. Okay, so we want to display the expenses. So after I've just had a look at Ingrid's code, I'm going to E. Okay, no problem. That's fine. Right, let me just have a look. Ingrid, I'm getting an error when I'm opening your page. Are you sure Okay. Okay, that's better. Hmm. With open file path. Mode A here. You're missing a comma on line 20 here. After A, mode equals A.
Thank you.
You can see that's why Python's pointing up to the A bit here.
Ah, okay, got it. Thank you.
No worries. And then there's some indentation error. It says, yeah, so there's just this empty bracket here at the bottom. Just need to get rid of that on line 31. And then everything should be okay. Right. So our next bit is we're going to be writing def, which we're going to create a new function for, and we're going to write display expenses. No worries. Right, display underscore expenses and open brackets, and we're going to write file underscore path again. So you can see here, this is why we use functions, because we can just call the different tasks to do with the same file path in just one place. And we can then do that with multiple different file paths if we wanted to as well. So that is another benefit of using functions. So what we want to write is we want to write the same thing pretty much as the last one with the try statement. But this time, so we're going to start with the try, and we're going to say with open file path, we're going to write mode equals R this time, and we don't need to add anything else because we're just in read mode as file. And then on the next line, we're going to write reader equals CSV dot reader and then file. So really simple, exactly the same as before, but rather than writer, we're doing reader this time. And then what we want to do is we want to convert whatever we've read from the file as a list. So we're just going to say expenses equals, we're going to convert whatever's in the reader, whatever we've just read, as a list. All right, we're going to convert it to a list, just like we'd convert to an int, just like we'd convert to Boolean if we've ever done that before, float. We can convert to a list as long as the format works. And in this case, it will, because we've, made it a list beforehand. So that was all relatively simple. Right. So what we want to do here is we want to say if the length of the expenses list, so if we read the file and there's no expenses within it, the length of this list will be 0, won't it? So we're going to just say if len of expenses equals 0, we want to say print no expenses found. All right, there's no point progressing further. We know that we can just say there's nothing there. And then what we want to do is we want to just type in return. So return is like, if we just type return by itself, it's the equivalent of a break in a while loop, kind of. It'll just exit out the function. All right, so it'll just return nothing. Okay, and then we want to get back in line with the if. And then for everything else, we want to say for every row in expenses, because what we want to do is we want to print this out, right? So we want to say for row in expenses, so for every row within this expenses list that we've just read in, we want to print in a nice way. So we want to print it out with nice commas and we want to join the rows, okay? So we're going to say print, open my speech marks. I'm going to write, so I want the format to be where there's a comma between each one. And then I'm going to write dot join, open my brackets again, and I'm going to write row. So I'm going to join each row with these commas. All right, and this is just the formatting to make that work. So this is basically printing the list as a string. All right, so on each line, making it look nice and neat. We can print it in a normal way, but it will just look not as nice. That is literally the only reason why we're not just writing print expenses. make it look nicer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write this bit in here. So we then want to just get back out in line with the try, and I'm just writing except file not found error. And so remember your capitalization. So FNFE needs to be capital. File not found error. So if there's no file found, we're going to say there's no expenses found. Please add some expenses first. And if there is an IO error, so the same as before, we're going to say an error occurred while reading the file this time, not writing the file, reading the file. Okay, and hopefully you're all with me so far. And again, if I run my code now, I should end up with nothing because we've not called these functions yet. We've just made the functions. Right, just give me a thumbs up if you've got all of that working and you understand, or if you've got any questions, again, remember, you can always ask me now about any of the arrows or items or anything. But if not, just give me a thumbs up and that's what I can. Okay, I can see a thumbs up from Ingrid. Awesome. Saja as well. I can see a thumbs up from. Amazing. Adele. Great stuff. Samia's done as well. Layla, are we okay?
Almost, I'm still doing this.
Yeah, no worries. That's fine. Take your time. Make sure we're all on the same page before I do the next section. Like the next section is our last section. So right, just for time sake, I'm going to keep moving really slowly, but Layla, if you've got any questions, just let me know. Right. Right, the next thing we're going to write is def main. So this is our main part of the program. So I'm going to say what we want to do is we want to specify here the file path. Okay, so I'm going to say file path equals, oh, I'm just going to write actually. No, I'm just going to write path equals expenses dot CSV. The path equals expenses dot CSV. And now what I want to do is I want to create a while true loop so that we can proceed with the program. Okay, right. Now, within my while true loop, similar to how we've done it beforehand in previous programs, right? So first, what I want to do is we want to display the menu, right? So the start. So that is just display underscore menu, open and close brackets. Okay, so that's going to do that every time. It's going to display the menu. Now, what I want to do is I want to ask the user a choice. So I'm going to say input. Please enter your choice. 1, 2, or 3. Right, really simple stuff. Right. If the choice is equal to 1, right? So I'll remember our first option was to add the sample expenses. So we want to say add underscore sample expense. So we're going to call this function. So add sample expense, open my brackets. Remember, it's expecting a file path. Our file path is expenses.cv, which is stored in path. So we're going to say path. So when this function gets called, this path is going to become the file underscore path for this section. All right. Now, elif choice equals to, we're going to write display underscore expenses. And again, the path is the file path. We're going to say elif choice equals 3. So that's for quitting. So what we want to do is we want to print a nice error message. We want to print a nice exiting the program goodbye message. So I'm just going to print exiting expense tracker. Thank you. And then what I'd want to do is I want to write break, similar to the week before, similar to always. If we want to get out of a while loop, we write break. And then else, if they enter anything else, we want to say print invalid option. Right. Now, again, if I run my program now, I should end up with nothing. Nothing should run. And that's because I've not called my main file again. So I'm just going to let everyone get up to here, just as long as everything's working, and then I'll show you how to make everything actually run. Just give me a thumbs up when you've done this section. Adele's giving me a thumbs up. Awesome.
Just on line 49, does there have to be a space after the equal sign?
No, let's have that. That's fine. Any spaces not at the front or within speech marks, Python ignores. Python will just completely ignore it. Unless it's at the beginning, because you'll get an indentation error, or if it's within speech marks, because that's our printing our string.
So if we run this, it still stays blank?
So if I delete the space, you mean?
No, because I've just run it and I still don't get a response from Trinket.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's correct. We've not called our main function yet, and I'll show you how to do that. And then that's how we're going to be, that's how we always kind of write our programs in object-oriented way. All right, and that might not make sense now, but if you do want to read up object orientation, or I will go over it probably in another lesson, I can always talk about it later. But yeah, that's the way we write our program. All right, I can see Samia's giving me a thumbs up as well. I believe Ingrid's done, Sasha's. Yeah, that is done as well. Right. I'm just going to show those who want how to run it, so then we can debug people slowly in case there are any issues afterwards. Right. So we want to say if underscore name underscore, this is, remember, right in line with the def, equals speech marks underscore main underscore colon, and we're going to call main like this. Okay. And this will basically always be true if we've got a main, and we'll call the main. Okay. So if there's a function that is the main, basically, that's what this bit kind of means, and it's gonna call main. This is just a Pythonic way of doing it. All right. Other Python programming languages just call main from the beginning, but in Python, this is how we do it. All right. Now, if I run my program, you should see here, I get my expense tracker menu, add sample expenses, display expenses. So, right, let me just try and display expenses. It says invalid option. Oh, it says invalid option, which is not right. Ah, okay, sorry. My bad. Right, here we go. I already spotted a mistake that I've made here. Right. So here I've not made my input an integer. All right. So I need to make my input an integer. Or when I enter 1, 2, or 3, it's not going to compare it with this. All right. So that's me being silly. Right. So running it again. Display expenses, it's going to say no expenses found. Please add some expenses first. So if I add my sample expenses in 1, it says samples printed successfully. Now, if I view my expenses, you can see here that I get my groceries, rent, utilities, transport. And then I can exit. Please enter your choice, 1, 2, or 3. Exit on 3. And it's exiting my expense tracker. And it should work absolutely fine. So just have a go running your program. Just check it all works, and it all works the same as mine.
Mine works until line 59.
Okay, right, Layla, I'm just gonna have a look at your code that you sent in the chat there.
Yes, line 30. I don't know what I've done wrong.
It works. It works.
Okay, so here, line 30 here needs to be right against the end, right against the edge. Okay, so you've got this whole section indented. So every line, you need to bring one line back. All right, like I'm doing here.
Oh, okay, I see it now, yeah.
Yeah. And even here, the print file and these two need to be in line with each other. All right, and then same with def main, it needs to be right against the edge.
I've picked check selection 3, and it doesn't exit.
Okay, just give me 1 second and I will be with you. Right, so even here, your if and elif need to all be in line with each other. So it's just your indentation here that you need to watch out for. And the rest of it looks okay. Yeah, once you fix your indentation, it should be like this. And then you just need to remember to do your int as well that I didn't do, which is my fault. So just fix that int on line 50. And then you've got some other mistakes as well where you've done
that's what
display expense should be expenses.
Okay, I'll correct them. I'll go to them now. Thank you.
No, but that's all good. Right, and then I think it should, yep. Okay. When you run it again and again, what you'll do is you'll always get it'll keep appending. Okay. So what we want to do is if I actually let me see if I can change my. Yeah. Just change your everyone, just change your write mode to W instead of A. And that'll just fix a lot of the issues with it. Just append so every time you run it, you don't keep getting date expense and it keeps adding. Just change it to W and it'll just rewrite it, which is fine. Right. Ingrid, would you mind, can you just write your link out for me again, please? Just the last digits. Again, you don't need to worry about the HTTP all the time. Just the end.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a look for you. Right. Well, Samia, let's have a look at yours. Oh, nothing's happening. Okay, so that means there we go. Can you see here it says if name equals main? So if it doesn't say main, it's not going to work. All right, and then remember in menu as well, you had an E here. So just delete that E. And then this should work like this. And then add sample expense. So you've got a couple spelling mistakes. So you've got add sample expenses. This isn't indented properly. So this needs to be in line with each other. This should say add sample expenses. Okay, to display expenses. With open, you've got you need to specify the file path. So it should be file path equals, it should be file path, comma, mode equals. Okay, so same as the line 21. Okay, it's just the end bit you don't need.
What was the difference between file mode equals W, mode equals R, and mode equals A? Can you just go over that?
Yeah, so mode equals W means write. So it will erase any file that's already here. It will erase any content within here and it will just write it again. So it will write from scratch. Append means it will add to the end. So you can see this is what will happen every time you run it. It will just keep adding to the bottom without deleting anything else. And read will just read the file, whatever's being read. So that's why I've said do W, because right now, can you see it will keep adding to this? But what I want to do is we want to, when we add our sample expenses, we want the file to delete and just have just the sample expenses once. Okay?
And can you just one more time go through what the, like if main equals main, can you just explain that, what the logic there is again?
So this is just saying, so if there is a function called main. So if we've defined a function called main, we want to run it. That's all that's saying. So if there isn't one, it won't run. Okay?
So we can call that anything really.
Yeah, you can. But this is just like, this is the, usually your first thing that you always call It's just the programming. If you're programming in an object-oriented way, which is how you should be programming, you always write your code within main. That's just what you call it. That's just common syntax throughout industry. Okay.
Thank you.
It could be anything, like you're right. It could be any function, but main is the one that we always do use. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No worries. It's just one of those industry things. It's not like a hard and set rule. Right. So I've just opened up your code here. Add sample expenses, 2 display expenses, and 3 exit. Okay, so it's just not doing exit. Oh, it's just because this is a logic error here. So if choice equals 3, you've said print invalid option, but choice equals 3 shouldn't be invalid option.
Oh, okay. It should be okay. Print. Thank you.
It should say thank you, and then you should break.
Okay, great. Thank
And then
you.
your else should be invalid option. All right. So your program's working fine. That's a logic error, not syntax error. Right. Everyone else okay? Is it working? Have you managed to fix all the things I've said to fix?
I have a question.
Of course.
I doesn't really understand something in that code, like
Sure. Which
when
bit?
we run and we choose the first option, add sample expenses.
Mhm.
It's like it's only adding that one that I already wrote it in the code.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm asking.
Oh,
My code is working. I don't understand something in it.
okay.
So when I choose the one,
Yeah.
choose the one, yes, add sample expenses is mean that which I wrote it in the sample expenses in the brackets
that's right.
is
Okay.
going to add that,
Mhm.
but every other time when I'm pressing again, it doesn't doing anything new when it's running the program. Is it right? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Because we only want to add the sample expenses once. So which is why we've changed the mode to W. If I had the mode as A, you could see what would happen each time. So if I add sample expenses, if I display it, you can see, can you see it's done twice? If I add sample expenses,
Yeah.
if I display it, it will do it more times. So if you can see here, it will keep adding it. All right? Because we don't
Yeah. So
want to just do
so
W.
right now, okay. So now we don't overwrite it or anything. We just adding this file like expenses CSV, and that's it.
That's
And
right.
then
Yeah.
we display it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't, because we don't want to have like a long list of the same thing again and again and again. That's why we changed it, the mode to W. Okay. So you can,
I understand this. My question was a slightly bit different.
okay.
When we did another task,
Mhm.
one of the option was to overwrite, but now we don't do overwriting. We just simply adding, which is we made it.
Oh, okay.
Like
So
we
this,
create
yeah,
the file.
I see. So this is, so W is overwriting and A is not overwriting. It's appending. Okay. So it's adding each time. So for our program to actually function logically, we do want to overwrite it. We don't want this to keep adding on. Okay. Which is why we've got the mode in
Okay.
W. But if you do A, it will keep adding on to the end. So every time if you press add sample expenses, it's going to add once. But we only want to add the sample expenses in once, right? Because this is just an example program. Does that make
Okay.
Yeah. No worries.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So because this is an example program, in reality, what we'd do is we'd ask the user to enter something, wouldn't we? We wouldn't have a sample expense like this. We would get the user to ask what they wanted to enter, and then we'd add it in. Which is why we
That was my question. That was it.
Okay. Yeah, that's
That's
just
why we are not doing like that we asking the user to enter the input and then always adding it.
That's right. Okay, so that's just because of time's sake, because if we did that, the program
Okay.
would just take too long to complete. But you should have the knowledge now to be able to do that. So by using append and using an input, just asking the user what expense do you want to add, we should be able to do this and replicate it. Okay?
So to be clear, because one doesn't work for me. So what you're saying, we still need to add a bit to it, because when I press add sample expenses, it doesn't actually, nothing happens. It just says samples printed successfully, but we have to add, how do we add the expense to enter?
So no, so when you press 1, it should say add some sample expenses, that's fine. And then when you press display, so option 2, then it should display the options.
No, but it doesn't. So when I press 1, when I press 1,
Yeah.
I get samples printed successfully, expense tracker menu 1, add sample expenses, 2, display samples. So how do I add sample expenses?
You've already added it by just pressing 1.
She had the same problem than I had. I
Yeah, it
think
doesn't actually
Ingrid
add
also
anything.
understanding on the same way that when we run the program, we go into inputting a new information, but no,
No,
that
no.
is not
So
part
you're
of
not
it now.
inputting any new
You're not
information.
inputting. Okay, got it. Yeah.
This is the information that you're adding in, okay? That you've already specified.
Got it.
Okay. Right. Anyone else? Any questions?
No?
Nope. All good. Okay. Awesome. Right. So, right, let's go to your assignment. Right, here we go. Oh, so what I'm going to do is actually just as another example of reading and writing, I'm just going to pause it here and pause it here. So when you look back through the recording, you can go through and have a look. Okay, so uploading your code, this is all pretty much exactly the same as before. Right, week 6 assignment, storing user preferences. So you need to write a program in Python that does the following. So the program should start with a welcome message and a display of options, entering or updating user preferences, viewing current preferences, or quitting the program. Users should be able to enter or update their preferences, which are then saved to a CSV file with appropriate labels for each setting. When viewing current preferences, the program should read from the CSV file and display each preference. Implement error handling for file operations. Okay, so there's pretty much very similar to what we've done today, but we're entering user preferences instead of entering expenses. That's it. So
What do you mean by user preferences?
It can be in any way you want. So user preferences in terms of their settings, their health,
Okay.
that kind of thing. Just information about them. Sorry, I know that's not really specified in the nicest of ways.
So just choose something is what you're saying.
Just choose something, yeah. Just choose something. It's more about the principle of you being able to do the CSV file handling rather than the actual what you're storing itself. But just any information about a user. So you can have user, you can have their age, you can have their do they want to consent to being sent marketing information, or what their health requirements are, their allergies, that kind of thing. So anything like that. You can have as many or as little options as you want. All right. One thing I would say is the easiest thing to do is remember here, we've used the sample expense. We've used the sample list. Okay. We've used the sample 2D list. All right. So we've got a list and then we've got lists within it. Okay. Right. When you do this, remember, you're not going to have a sample list. You're going to have to ask, which is why we didn't do that in this lesson, because we want you to do that in your assignment. You need to ask the user, what would you like to enter? What would you like to update or see? And then work with the list. Okay. So you need to either add it to the list and then you need to read from the list. Okay. Does that make sense? So work with the list. That's my hint. And remember, any issues with that, drop by on Saturday at 10 and we will go over it. Okay. This week, I believe, yeah, this week I won't be here to go over it with you. You'll have another instructor who will be here to go over it with you. But then the following week I'll be back. All right, on Saturday. But that will be an instructor.
I'm a little bit behind with the homework. Can I still send it?
Yeah, no problem. You can still do your homework. Even if you're behind, you can still do it and then drop it in. So on the Notion page on the group, you can see all the weekly assignments are there. So just go through them at your own pace. Okay?
Thank you.
No worries.
Just a quick question. is it an 8-week of course? So
Yes.
we have other two? Okay, thank you.
That's
That
right.
was all. Have a
No.
nice week.
Thank you very much. You too.
Can I ask just one last question?
Yeah.
The N, I just tried to do it being clever and it didn't work. So can you just write down what, so it's reverse backslash N and then, it's reverse backslash then N. Yeah, I did that. What did I do wrong?
And then let's say I write this. So if I run my program, you can see it prints hello.
Oh, so the reverse backslash is at the beginning of the sentence, not at the end.
It's at the end of the first one, beginning of the second one. So if I was to do what you want to do here, what you're trying to accomplish in one line, it would be like this. And remember, you're going to have to not have spaces after it either.
Okay, so no spaces after the end. Okay.
Backslash n. So before the backslash n, I mean. So it should come right at the end of whatever you want to display. And then if I delete this.
I think that's my error, is I had a space before the backslash N.
Yeah. So it should, yeah, it'll basically be right along. Oh, sorry, it shouldn't have a space after it either. There we go. It needs to be right up. They should all be right up against each other. Why it's not very nice to look at, which is why I did the other way. But
no, that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries. Right. Okay. If that's it, everyone, then I've got another lesson to teach. So I'm going to drop off now. So I'm jump on there.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Well done for today.